Hello there! So today I want to do a short video regarding Lighter because a lot of people have been wondering, should I pull for Lighter, should I not pull for Lighter, should I save for Miyabi in the future, how good is he gonna be, do I need him if I already have Koleda or someone like Lycan for example. So here today I want to talk about him and what his values are going to be. So first and foremost, what does he do? I'm not going to go over the entire kit, I'm just going to tell you exactly what is going to be very useful on him and the reason why you might want to pull him. So first and foremost, obviously, he's a stunner character, which means his role is to stun enemies, to put them in the, to break their poise, if you will, and then you switch to your DPS to deal as much damage as possible, right? So, the big points about him, first of all, he seems to be pretty fast in terms of number, and he has a way to extend the stun states on the enemies, right? So this is very good. Now, the reason why he's very, very nice is that he has a more burst state that you achieve just by, doing some light combos. Anyway, once you reach to that state, every time you attack an enemy, essentially you will be lowering the enemy's ice resistance and fire resistance by 15% for 30 seconds. So this is very, very long. So you just have to enter that more burst state, hit the enemies with the standard light punches, right? Or your jabs combo or whatever, just when you hit them essentially. You are gonna shred their defenses massively. Now on top of that, he has the additional ability, so that's the core passive, so that's when he's paired with a character from the same faction, that's gonna be the Sons of Calydon, or with any attackers. So any attackers, obviously, since he's a stunner, that means that he's gonna be very, very good for any kind of main carry, right? The only moment where that's not gonna work well is that if you want to play anomaly teams, right? Now the thing is that if you want to play anomaly teams, obviously, as we've seen recently, we have some great option in terms of anomaly characters in the Sons of Calydon, right? Or characters that function in the anomaly teams within the Sons of Calydon. So obviously Bernice is an anomaly character, she's a Son of Calydon, and then we have characters like, well, Piper if you want, but I think she's got pretty much power crept at this point, but you can definitely use someone like Lucy as a support, so you can run something like, let's say, Jane, Lucy, and then Lighter, and that's going to be working very well. Except that you probably don't want to do that because, the most of your damage is going to be from Jane, but I'm just giving example essentially, right? So you can probably do something like, let's say in the future, Miyabi is an anomaly character, she's Ice Anomaly, so you can go with Miyabi, Lighter, and then Lucy, that would be good, for example, right? So this is very good. So when he's paired with those characters, he has the ability to buff their ice damage and fire damage of his teammates every single time he basic attack an enemy, and that stacks up to 20 times. On top of that, if he has 170 impact, he will gain extra buff. Essentially, what you got to know is that he can buff his teammates' ice damage and fire damage by up to 75%. Is this realistic? You need to attack enemies with basic attack 20 times. That's a lot of stacks. But I mean, if you have him a little bit on the field for a little while, that is definitely possible, especially if you're trying to fully stun an enemy, especially if they're elite enemies and so their stun gouges are a bit, bigger. That's actually, it's possible to do, right? And at the end of the day, if you don't max it out, you can probably get 10 basic attacks in, that's still going to be a 37% attack increase, and is still absolutely amazing, right? So, moving on. That's his ability. Essentially, he defends the fire and ice resistance of its enemies, and he buffed the fire and ice damage of his teammates. Incredibly strong. So, the question is, in what situation do you want to use him? Obviously, you want to use him in a team where you want to play a carry, either anomaly or just a classic attacker that has a fire damage or ice damage type. At the moment, we don't have many options right now, because in terms of those characters, right, we essentially have, well, we have Bernice as a fire character, but Bernice is not necessarily a main damage dealer, she's more of a support. So you could pair Bernice with someone else. So maybe you can do Bernice, Miyabi in the future, Lighter. That's probably going to be an insane team. If you don't have Bernice, you can probably just do a hypercarry team with Soldier 11. So you can do like Soldier 11, Lucy, and then Lighter. That's going to be a mono fire team. That's going to be very strong. Now, if you want to support ice characters, we only have one option, and that is going to be currently Ellen Joe. Now we're going to get Miyabi in the future, so that's going to be possible as well. Now, the question is, the multiple questions, I'm sorry I have so many. Do you need him? If you have Lycan for your ice characters, Lycan is going to be good enough. If you have Coletta for your fire teams, if you want to use Coletta, she's probably going to be good enough. So the question is, at how much of a benefit is that going to be? Are you going to need his defense shred and damage boost that much? I think currently in the state of the game is not hard enough that you absolutely need it, okay? That said, he's obviously going to be best in slot in a lot of those teams. He's going to be power creeping both Lycan and Coletta, in my opinion. Unless you want to do specifically mono ice teams, because even though he buffs ice damage, he's not an ice character. So I think he's going to be very, very strong, but premium resources are rare, and maybe you want to make sure you can get Miyabi. Maybe you're free to play, and getting a premium stunner when free permanent options are available is not really worth it. So I think this is really important to take into consideration. Do you need him if you already have Coletta on Lycan? Probably not. If you love him, go for him. If you want your favorite character that's going to be like Miyabi or Soldier 11 to have the best teammate possible, in that case you probably want to get Lighter, right? Now nothing stops you from just waiting for him to rerun and get him there, and I think that's essentially what it boils down to. If you don't have a 5-star stunner, you can probably go for him, right? If you haven't pulled for Shinyi and you're liking like a Lycan and you want to make sure you have like the best stunner for an ice character, then it's gonna be a great option right now. Maybe you didn't get lucky with the permanent banner. It is what it is. I think it's gonna be great, right? Now, if you already pull for Shinyi, who is like a premium stunner, I don't think you necessarily need him, right? You probably don't want to pull for multiple stun characters, because, I mean, most people, they're more excited for the DPS. It is what it is, right? So I think you gotta take into consideration, what does your account currently need? Do you have do you have 1 or 2 of the permanent stunner? Are you happy with only MB? Potentially, I think you should get an upgrade, but, you know, maybe you can get MB on one side and then Lighter on the other side. Did you already put for Shinyi? All of those are very important to know, right? Now, moving on from that, let's say you are decided on getting Lighter. Well, maybe you want to get a few copies of his cinemas, right? That's possible. Maybe you want some Mindscapes. So, to give you a quick overview of, I think, which Mindscapes are going to be very good for him and worth it, his first Mindscape essentially is called the Champion, and he will basically be able to reduce the ice and fire resistance of the enemies by 10% more, which is, you know, very good. It has a bit more effect, but this is the core of it. So this is going to essentially debuff the enemies even more. Very, very strong. Now, the second cinema is Red Scarf, and this is actually going to increase both the stun damage multiplier, so the same way that Shinji does, right? So instead of having a 150% damage multiplier, it can be up to 125, for example. And on top of that, he will, the increase to damage of the ice and fire buff he provides through the stack of elation that he has is going to be 120% stronger than the original, which means he's going to be able to stack more damage buff for his team. So if you've played Genshin Impact, this is basically the Furina constellation. So essentially, you need less stack to be as efficient, which is very, very strong. So you need to spend less on-field time with him. I think those are the two most important cinemas, and luckily there are 1 and 2. So if you really want to invest into lighters, those are very good stopping points in my opinion. Cinema 3 is not gonna be, it's just the classic skill increase. Same for Cinema 5. Now Cinema 4, essentially, he gives energy regen to on-field characters when he's off-field, and when he's on-field, he gives energy regen to the off-field characters. Essentially, he gives his team energy regen. Yeah, it's pretty good. Is it absolutely necessary? Is it worse than Cinema 4? Probably not. And now we have Cinema 4, which is absolutely busted. The recovery efficiency of his morale state essentially is increased by 200% of its original value. And when he attacks enemies with basically anything, any kind of attack he has, he will trigger a big impact, causing 250% of his attack as fire damage. And that can happen every 8 seconds. And then if you're every point above 170 of his impact will increase the damage by 5%, up to a maximum of 500% damage. And essentially, that it's a big explosion, and the cooldown can be reduced depending on the amount of morale you have. So that kind of makes him a DPS, potentially. That kind of allows him to deal so much damage that you can consider having him as a self-buffer. Is that absolutely necessary? No. That's actually going to change his playstyle a little bit, but that's definitely... This is only if you simp him really, really hard. I think Cinema 1 and Cinema 2 are so strong, you don't need to go further than that. Cinema 1 is going to be good enough, but Cinema 2, if you really want that increase of damage, you can definitely go for that. So that's my thought on the characters. Personally, what do I think? I have Koleda, I have MB, and I play a lot of anomaly team. So most of the time, I don't even need a stunner apart from Koleda. So I generally do a side with Koleda or MB, depending on whether or not I'm playing, you know, either if I'm playing, you know, like someone like Julian, I'm using MB because MB is gonna synergize well with Nicole. If I'm playing Elen, I'll be using Koleda because that's who I got, right? Because of that, I don't feel the need to actually go for another stunner, personally. So I'm not actually going to be pulling for him, especially because I'm saving for Miyabi. And yes, Lighter is probably going to be best installed for Miyabi, but I'll just live without it. Also, I'm not the most into his looks, so maybe I'll just wait for another stun character to come out in the future. So that's my thoughts, and that's what I'm going to do personally, but definitely don't let that stop you. If you love him, please go for him, and that's going to be it for me. Alright. Sorry for the messy videos. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe. Let me know what you're going to be doing. And I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.